What's up, guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. Will the final beast kingdom consist of genetically enhanced humans? Well, it's a question that I tackled for an article that I wrote for SKYWATCH magazine. I believe if you subscribe to the magazine, you can check out the article. I just sent it in today. And I'm not going to read the article for you. Again, you guys can go check that out by subscribing to the SKYWATCH mag. But I did want to point out some things that I talked about in the article. And basically, my whole argument is that the final beast kingdom that we read about in Revelation 13, 1 and 2, specifically 1, it says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." This idea of the sea and the beast that rises out of the sea is a fascinating one, and actually most scholars have used the reference to many waters in Revelation 17:15 to talk about the sea. And if you go to Revelation 17:15, it says, "The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sits, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." In other words, the sea refers to the people of the world. And so I thought it begged the question, what are the people of the world up to now? And where are we headed in the near future? And so logically, I am able to speculate this possibility that because the beast that rises out of the sea is a kingdom, also a leader, I think it means both, comes from the collection of humanity, peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, but is called a beast. So do you get what I'm saying, where it rises from the people, but it's not people, it's something else, it's the beast, it's not just a kingdom. I think there is more to it, and I believe that perhaps looking at the 3 animals that are mentioned in Daniel 7, which is the lion, bear, and leopard, and really digging into how those animals are translated or represented, what they mean, especially in Daniel 7, and then consider what they are used for when you read Revelation 13:2, because what Chris White discovered, and I think he's right about this, is that the beast that we read about in Daniel 7:7, this dreadful, terrible, and exceedingly strong 4th beast, this beast is the same consolidated beast that we read about in Revelation 13, 1 and 2, where same thing, these 3 beasts come out of the sea, but for some reason it's consolidated. And it led me to speculate the possibility that perhaps these, again, and I've mentioned this before, but these animals that are represented are not just nations, but rather they're industries or corporate entities of some kind. And that's not hard to believe. You know, if you think about it, Google has been acquiring more than one company a week since 2010. Okay, so they've merged or consolidated several tech companies over the course of the last 5 years. And so it's only a matter of time before we see these big merges happen. And this final beast kingdom will consist of elements of the lion and the bear and the leopard and what they represented as part of this final beast kingdom. And also Revelation 13:2 talks about how it's used. The 4th beast looks kind of like a leopard, but his feet were like the bear and the mouth was like the lion. And so right there you have specific uses of each of these animals for the final kingdom. In other words, if you go back and read through Daniel 7 verses about 2 through 7, you see each animal has a really detailed description of what it represents and what it's doing. So again, we can start speculating as to the possibility of how is each one of these animals perhaps an industry, perhaps the internet or, technology, online tech, that kind of stuff is one of these animals, or scientific developments, or, the military. It's all very interesting, all very fun to speculate on. And again, more needs to be developed there, but it's something that I wanted to share because I think when you start looking at it in those terms, then we are really talking about a new race of beings, a new species that the scriptures seem to have room for. Because we're talking about these transhumans, we're talking about this human evolution and all this stuff happening, but is it in the Bible? And when you read Revelation 13 early on and Daniel 7 and look at this beast that rises out of the sea, using some of the logic I used earlier, it can be argued that this final beast kingdom will be one that is genetically enhanced. And some of the proof text is the fact that God doesn't spare any of them. In fact, the wrath that God brings down on the people who took the mark of the beast and worshiped the image is pretty gruesome. the way it's described is smoke of their torment ascending up forever and ever. That doesn't sound very pleasant, yet we know that people will blindly continue to persist and push on and try to find the secret magic formula through technology. So just something to consider here. In the article, I tie it into how I'm part of the Oregon Trail generation, which just means that we were introduced to the computer and video games and all that stuff in our public education system. It was around 2nd or 3rd grade when I first started going to the computer lab as part of our weekly curriculum, and we played Oregon Trail and we started learning different things about the computer and things like that. So we are the last generation. Think about this, guys. My generation, I was born in the early 80s. We are the last people who know life before the internet and technology. And a lot of it is a distant memory, in our past, but we're the last generation that probably, just wanted to go run around outside or, play on the street with friends and stuff like that. That sort of, nostalgic sort of American kid growing up type of deal. That sort of imagery doesn't exist anymore. And so we are probably the last generation to have any kind of memory of life prior to the computer and the internet. And people that are born after me, mid 80s to late 80s to the early 90s, they were just born into a completely different world. And it's a fascinating thing to look at because I recall noticing a change in how people talked. The social interactions between people changed because now everything was, online this, the website that, email here, email that. Did you hear about this rumor, that rumor? All surrounding the internet. So I noticed a change in our communication, not just the method, but in actual physical interactions that changed. The things we talked about, the things that we wanted to do when we hung out together, all that changed when the internet hit the scene. So in any case, I just wanted to rant about the new species of the Final Beast Kingdom article that I wrote for SKYWATCH magazine, and it's something you guys can go subscribe to and check out. And a lot of good authors on there, a lot of good stuff in there. So that being said, hope you guys have a great day. God bless.